Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to talk to this person. Absolutely phenomenal. You're going to love her. I'm super excited to talk to her. Her name is Lisa Steele. And Lisa Steele is a fifth generation chicken keeper and the founder of Fresh Eggs Daily, the popular backyard chicken keeping brand. She's also the author of the Fresh Eggs Daily cookbook and several other books on raising backyard flocks and the host of Welcome to My Farm on Create TV, which she produces from her farm in Maine, where she lives with her husband, their corgi, and 3 dozen chickens, ducks, and geese. Welcome, Lisa. I'm super excited to talk with you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
That is awesome. So, fifth generation. That is amazing. So, are you on the same land, or is it just that you're the fifth in your
Yeah,
generation?
no, I mean, we can trace back 5 generations to my
Mm.
great great grandmother in Finland. My grandparents came to
Oh.
this country from Finland when they were kids, young.
Hmm.
So we've only been in this country for 3 generations, but I
Hmm.
can definitively trace back, and I'm sure it goes back earlier than that because back then everybody had to raise, whatever they were going to be eating. But
Yeah.
my grandmother lived to be 99 years old,
Oh,
and it was
wow.
so much fun to talk to her about, her grandmother
Mm.
raising chickens and that. And my grandparents had a chicken farm across the
Mm.
street from our house growing up. So, commercial, like that was what they
Oh,
did to
yeah.
support
Mhm.
their family. Not like commercial, like, Tyson, but, they had like a
Yeah, yeah.
big,
They sold
three-story
it.
barn,
Mhm.
2 wings,
Mhm.
whatever. And they sold to like local restaurants and
Mhm.
diners. And, they had, my grandfather had his egg root and everything. But yeah, they were legit chicken farmers. So I was like just a hobby 4-H'er as a kid, but,
Mhm.
definitely grew up with chickens.
That's super fun to me because my grandparents were both born in Finland. My dad was therefore
Oh,
100% Finnish as well. So like that's like my heritage too. So that's really fun.
it's not very common either. I mean, it's
It's
kind of neat. And
not.
I wish I knew more. Like we have some old pictures and things, but
Mhm.
yeah, so they fled like the Russian invasion or whatever and came over like in the early 1900s. So I grew
Yeah,
up
mine.
in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. See, mine came to northern Minnesota, and then my grandpa, he was born in Finland, he was a miner in northern Minnesota. So he was working in the mines. I think they were coal mines, I think is what they were. But yeah, they were both from there. I mean, then their names are all Finnish, and his grandparents spoke Finnish. Yeah.
That's really funny because my when they both sides are my mom's and my dad's are both from Finland, but my
Yeah.
dad ended up in Salem, Oregon. But my moms, who we lived across the street from, they originally went to International Falls
Oh, yeah.
from
Hmm.
Finland, and then I think they were like, you know what, we don't have to live where it's cold and snowy all the time, so they moved to Cape Cod.
But that's funny because that's where my dad was born, was International
Of
Falls. And
course, that's
his
a huge
mom was
community. Yeah.
and his mom was 100% Finnish too. So both of his parents were 100% Finnish. So he, therefore, my dad was 100% Finnish too. So how fun.
Yeah, fun little, didn't expect that connection.
Right, exactly. So that's totally amazing. And I am a vegetarian, but my family eats meat, but I do consume eggs. So and I really love and I seek out buying eggs where they can be in the chickens are in like a normal so-called normal natural environment, which I'm assuming you must do. They're like free range and stuff like that.
Yeah, they wander around our yard and eat bugs and
Mm.
stuff. It's um yeah, it's
Helpful, right?
so, yeah, well, exactly. They eat the ticks and grubs and whatever. But yeah, it's kind of misleading because you go to the store and there's an egg carton and it says,
Mm.
antibiotic free, hormone free, which chickens who lay eggs can't have those anyway. So that's, meaningless. And then it'll say
Oh,
natural,
yeah. Mhm.
fresh, also meaningless. And then there's cage free, which everybody thinks is like, the buzzword. We want our chickens to be cage free, because everyone
Yeah.
knows that there are these little tiny cages, no bigger than a
Mhm.
sheet of paper, and you feel bad for the chickens. But
Right.
cage free really just means that they've taken the cages away and now all those chickens are just roaming around this huge warehouse, maybe
Right.
never going outside. Chickens are mean,
Yeah.
so they're pecking at
Mhm.
each other. And they've actually done studies
Yeah.
that the mortality rates are higher with cage free chickens
Oh,
because the cages actually
jeez.
keep them safe.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes sure everybody
Mhm.
gets enough food, enough water. Plus, the eggs are just, cleaner, more sanitary because they're being laid and then rolled away. So, cage free really is no better. And this
A
whole
bad
push
term.
for cage free, to me, it's no better than cages. What you really want is pasture raised, because that means the chickens actually, they get locked up at night, so they're safe, but then they are out on pasture, they're on grass, or they're in wooded areas, they're getting sun and exercise, and they're chasing butterflies, and then like all the happy things that you want your chickens to be
Yeah.
doing. So
Yes.
I'm torn about the whole cage free thing, because it's making egg prices go up, because now these farms have to
Oh.
redo their whole barn area.
Oh,
But
geez.
it really is not better, for the chickens. If I had to choose between cage free and caged, I would say caged, just because
Mhm.
it's more sanitary. They are safer. I mean, chickens are awful. They're like the original Mean Girls.
Yeah.
They're just really bad.
That's really good to know and put out there though, because well, see, I usually try to find free range or yeah, forage to pasture is another phrase
Free
I've
range, yeah,
heard.
yeah. Hmm.
Hmm. So I
Right,
try to
yeah, any
choose
of those.
those. But then my second go-to would be if they don't have that kind, then I would go to cage free. But that's good to know because maybe my second choice now would not be cage free. Because I didn't know that. And that's the problem too. People don't know that. They think, oh,
They
cage
don't
free,
know,
that's what I want. Mm-hmm.
because the marketing, the egg board or whoever has done this huge marketing push, or Peter, whoever's pushing for it, without really
Right.
understanding chickens and how
Mm-hmm.
these things work. I think my second choice, if you can't find like a true pasture raised or a free range, would be like your local farm. I mean, our local grocery
Yeah.
store has eggs from local farms. A lot of times
Yes.
there's like almost nothing on the carton, but it's you
Mhm.
can look on the side and it says, local farm, blah, blah, blah. And
Mhm.
those chickens are out on the grass, because local farmers are not, keeping them in
Right.
these huge chicken barns. So
Mhm.
yeah, I would probably go for a local farm. Our farmers market is always a great
Mhm.
choice. Or raise your own chicken,
Well,
which I
see
highly
how
recommend.
oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have a farm right by me too, which is just fantastic, and I think they get them from some other farm, but it's like a Amish farm or something, and they're all yeah, they're just out.
Mhm.
So I have a question which probably is silly. Why are eggs different colors? Like, why are they different colors? Are they different kinds of chickens, or what makes the
Yes.
shell a different color?
It's not a silly question. So I, grew up around chickens. They laid brown eggs, just
Mhm.
because that's the breed of chicken. And most supermarket eggs have been white traditionally, only
Mm.
because chickens that lay white eggs tend to be smaller. And so the feed conversion rate is greater, or lesser,
Mm.
whatever it is. So it costs
Yeah.
less to feed that chicken to lay that egg. Whereas the brown egg layers tend to be like the bigger girls, they eat more food. So it always kind of was
Mm.
like the farms had brown eggs and the supermarkets had white eggs. So growing up, we always had brown eggs. And I never saw a white egg until I started going to sleepovers at my friends' houses, and their moms would make breakfast with white eggs. And I was like, what the heck is a white egg,
What's this?
And then I didn't even realize that there were chickens that laid blue eggs. We got
Yeah.
chickens again when I was adult, like 2009. I was watching Martha Stewart's show one day, and she had her chickens on with her blue eggs. I had no idea. My grandparents' chickens didn't lay blue eggs.
Right.
So yeah, it's just a breed of chicken. Different breeds just lay different eggs, and they apply a pigment. On all eggshells start out white, and then the different
Okay.
breeds, put pigment on depending on what color dye that chicken has in her, basically.
I've heard so many like weird rumors, like, oh, the white ones are bleached. Oh, the brown ones are healthier. Like all these like weird rumors that are probably not true.
Not true. The strictly just the breed of chicken. That's what the color egg depends on. The diet of the chicken is going to make the egg yolk a different color. So, like if you get a really,
Mm.
really dark orange egg yolk, that chicken has been out eating leafy greens and pumpkin and parsley and like all the things that have the beta
Oh,
carotene in it.
yeah.
Um, but some of the commercial farmers have clued into that, and they'll add marigolds or
Oh,
corn or something to the feed to kind of artificially make them orange. But
yeah.
the
Hmm.
chicken's diet directly affects the color yolk. Not
Wow.
because I've read things also like, oh, if you feed your chicken this or that, it'll change the shell color, which is not happening. But the
Huh.
yolk color is completely, I mean, at times, because we live in Maine, so at times
Hmm.
the chickens have had a lot of lobster shells, and the yolks will
Oh,
turn almost like a salmon pinkish color.
wow. I've never even seen that. Like I've seen dark orange versus lighter,
Mhm.
a lighter yolk, but I've never seen that color. Wow. That's
Yeah, it's
fascinating.
amazing. It's kind of like flamingos. Aren't flamingos pink
Yeah,
because they
yeah.
eat the shrimp or whatever they eat? Yeah.
Yeah. But then you can
Hmm.
see lighter ones and darker ones. Like there's lighter pink flamingos and there's darker pink flamingos.
Right.
It's so interesting. And so you've made several cookbooks, and that is an arduous process, right? Like, tell us what that was like for you. And, did someone take your photos? How many times do you make your recipes before you're like, this is it?
Good question. I actually wrote a couple books on raising chickens prior to the
Oh,
cookbook.
okay.
And I did hear like writing a cookbook is so hard. And I'm not going to say it's easy, but I do have to say that I found it easier than writing books about chickens because those,
Oh,
every single fact has to be fact checked. Like you can't just write and say stuff.
oh,
So the research and
yeah.
then the paragraphs and what should come next and which chapter comes next. Whereas writing a cookbook, you're focusing on that one recipe
True. Yeah.
done, and then you're moving on to the next recipe. And writing recipes is easy once you get the
Mm-hmm.
hang of it. You've got
Yes.
your formula, whatever your format. Your publisher says we want this, we want that. We want
Yep.
tablespoon written out, we want this, whatever. And you're just writing a short little head note. So I found that easier because it's almost like 100 little mini projects instead of here's this book
Yeah.
with 8 chapters. What the heck am I going to write about? Um, so I really love the process. It is long. It takes a long time.
Mhm.
Fortunately, a lot of the recipes were things, at least initially, were things that I made regularly. They were
Yeah,
family
sure.
recipes. They were things that, so I didn't necessarily feel like I had to test them a
Mm,
lot because I had made them so many times I knew they worked. Other things were
right.
things I was, experimenting with. Um, my husband ate a lot of the same thing over and over again, which because I would kind of
Yeah.
get into her, like, I want to make this until I think I can do it better, and he'd be like, it's fine, it's
Yeah.
good. I'm like, but I think it could be better. And once I was on that recipe, I didn't want to take a break and then go back to it. Um,
Right.
so it really varies. I mean, some things, I mean, baking and cooking are so different too, because cooking,
They
you're
are.
tasting as you go along. So I kind of feel
Mhm.
like you might not need as many tests because you can adjust as you go on and make notes.
Right.
Whereas
Mhm.
baking, you don't really know till it's done. You
Yeah.
take it out, you eat, you try it, and you're like, no, I could use a little more vanilla extract. So now you got to start all
Right.
over again.
Yep.
So those are two very different things, but I really enjoyed the process. One day I made 18 souffles. I was making minis, not full size. Um,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but I just knew that it could be better. And I tried every technique in the book, buttering, using
Mm.
Parmesan, using breadcrumbs, brushing up, making the
Yeah.
sleeve. I mean, everything that I possibly could try, I tried until I felt like, okay, this is a recipe that I can say, yes, this is going to work. And after it worked, I had to try it a few more times.
All
So the
right.
chicken ate a lot of souffle that day because after like the first two or three, I really didn't want to eat anymore.
So that's interesting. So they can eat leftover table scraps
Mhm.
then. Oh, they
Yeah, that's
can.
one of
Okay.
the huge benefits. Chickens are technically omnivores, so they eat everything: grain,
Oh,
vegetables, fruits, meat, fish scraps.
wow.
They can eat eggs. There's a very short list of things that could be toxic for them. But for
Yeah.
the most part, anything from the garden, I keep a container when I'm cooking, and all the ends and scraps and trimmings and leaves and stems and whatever goes in there. I think people who don't feed their chickens the scraps, they're really missing out because you save on your feed
Yeah.
bill.
Mhm.
We have a compost pile, but we never use it anymore because the chickens basically compost everything, and
Right.
then they poop and it goes on the garden. So it's a
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
circle.
It is. And I like that too because it's like they're eating natural foods. They're not eating like some
Mm.
processed weird stuff. It's stuff that you are eating. I mean, it's fresh, it's normal
And it's
foods.
a wide variety, everything in moderation.
Hmm.
So, the healthier you eat, obviously, the healthier your chickens are going to eat. You shouldn't be giving them, the stale Oreos or
Cheetos or
the
something.
whatever. Yeah, exactly. But other than that, like if we have stale ends of bread, nothing moldy or whatever. But
Yeah, yeah.
berries that are a little too soft, lettuce that has wilted, like when you do refrigerator clean out, that's their
Hmm.
favorite day. Just a
Oh,
big
that's
bowl of
so
just
funny.
everything. Yeah.
That's so fun because like we have dogs and we have a guinea pig, and so I love to just feed them, stuff that we have too. You have to be careful, of course, with dogs because they can't have much salt and
Mhm.
there's certain things they can't have. But so I totally identify with that because it's fun to just feed them and be like, they're like, and they get excited too. They're like, yay, I like this. I like this piece of chicken or whatever.
Oh, so excited. In fact, I'm working on a blueberry cake recipe and we've eaten most of it, but there was, a little sliver left. I gave that to them this morning. Well, they love blueberry cake. Not as a regular diet, but it's just like eggs.
Right.
It's not going to kill them, in moderation. They pretty much eat everything.
So I don't know how this works. So like you have a certain proportion that are, or do you have only hens or do you have the male chickens too? Or how does that work?
We we have had roosters on and off, mostly because I have hatched eggs, and we ended up with one that I couldn't get rid of, and
Oh.
they're hard to rehome. Um, but no, you don't need a rooster for the hens to lay eggs.
Mhm.
I'm not a huge fan of roosters. I mean, first of all, they crow all day long, not just in the morning.
Yeah.
Mating season is rough. Your chickens look like they've been, in bar fights because the roosters
Right.
just, hopping on them. The roosters are good for breaking up fights. They will kind of referee
Mhm.
between the hens if they're fighting, and they do look out for predators, but a rooster is not going
Yeah.
to be a match for a dog or a coyote or hawk,
No.
or like they're just going to get killed first. So
Yeah. Mhm.
not a fan of the rooster. It's personal preference.
Mhm.
They're mean. They can be very mean. I've had roosters rip through my jeans and like slash my leg. I mean,
Wow.
the
Oh.
testosterone kicks in and they want to protect their flock against everything.
Oh,
So
sure. That makes
yeah,
sense.
they're
Yeah.
just
So they,
they're doing their thing. Yeah.
yeah. So you don't even really need them. And I've heard of other people like, so what is in chicken feed? If you're doing just the feed, that's what do they put in the feed? It's just like this, processed foods and
It depends on the brand. I like the whole grain or cracked grain brands more so. So it's like cracked corn, it's wheat,
mm,
maybe barley, millet, split peas, sunflower
mhm,
seeds. You can actually, in a handful of it, you can see the different things, the seeds and the grains and things. And then there's little like pellets that are the nutrient packet that they need that has
mhm,
all the extra calcium and whatever they're not getting from the grains. And then
mm,
there's the processed, which is more like, say, dog kibble, like the equivalent to dog kibble, where it's like
yeah.
a crumble or a pellet, and it's all of
Mm,
that goes through a machine and spits out these little,
mhm.
pellets. Some people like those because they feel like they're more balanced because each
Oh.
mouthful is, everything they need. Whereas when you
Mhm.
use the whole and cracked grain, all the really bossy chickens go through and they pick out all the good stuff
Oh.
and they,
Yeah.
leave the rest for everybody else. But I figure it all evens out. you
Yeah.
know, I,
Yeah.
if they were out in the wild, they'd be, finding worms and bugs and seeds and berries and whatever. So I do kind of tough love. Like if you're not getting the good feed, you need to learn to be a little tougher and get to the feed
Right.
quicker.
You need to fight harder, right?
Yeah,
Fight harder for
exactly.
your
Hmm.
mhm. So if
Survival of
someone
the fittest.
exactly. It applies everywhere, right?
Hmm.
So if someone were to want to like get into having chickens, is there a minimum number of chickens you like need to have?
I mean, stuff happens. I would say no more than three. You don't want one chicken. I mean, they're flock animals. They need friends. If you get two
Yeah.
and something happens to one of them, now you've got a single chicken. So I'd
Mhm.
say three at the bare minimum, but usually five or six is a really nice flock number
Mhm.
because that way, if something does happen to one or two, you still have a couple and they'll lay enough eggs for a family of four. You'll be getting 5 or 6 eggs on a good day, when they're laying well.
And so you're in Maine, so they can obviously go outside in the winter in the
Mhm.
snow and that doesn't seem to bother them.
Oh, they hate snow. It's not going to hurt them, but they don't like it.
Right. Do they ever choose to like not go out then if they see snow? I'm like, nope, I'm not going out there.
They do at the beginning of the season, and then like this time of year, they've kind of given up and they figure there's just going to be snow on the ground forever. So they finally venture out
Mhm.
onto it, but they hate walking on it. So I'll
Mm.
shovel spaces for them or put down straw. They have pallets they can stand on, because you do want them outside getting fresh air, sunlight. But as far
Yeah.
as the cold, I mean, we get down below zero and
Mhm.
they're fine. We don't heat our coop. They're
Oh,
very
wow.
cold hardy. Mhm.
Oh, that's nice. So tell me a little bit more about your show. That sounds really amazing and super fun.
It is really fun. It's on Create TV and also local public television stations
Mhm.
across the country, and it sort of is kind of like a day in the life. Come with me. Maybe I'm collecting eggs. Say hi to the chickens. Then I'm off to a strawberry farm to get some strawberries. I come home, make
Mm.
strawberry shortcake. Save the chips of the tops of the strawberries for the chickens. Maybe make them a little treat out of something. Just kind of a like that, nothing super structured, but I always cook something or bake something. And then I've been going to local farms to kind of give people an idea of what Maine is like too.
Very nice. So you have a lot of
Mhm.
the regional flavor out there for people to see what it's like of
Mhm.
living it there. Oh, nice. Have you always lived in Maine then?
No, we moved here, I guess almost 9 years ago now. But I mean,
Mm.
I grew up in Massachusetts, so New England definitely is
Yeah.
home. I love the seasons,
Yeah. The
foliage,
winters get a little bit
snow.
long for me anyways in Minnesota, but
Yeah, we're expecting snow again. Is still some snow on the ground. We're expecting snow again mid this week. And at this point, I'm kind of over it. By April,
oh
we
yeah.
don't need any more snow. But then, come October or November, I'm always, rooting for more snow.
Right. So do you find yourself using fresh eggs daily? Like do you actually use them every day? You do, yeah.
I would say probably yes. I mean, definitely for breakfast, but then, whether you're breading something to make, eggplant parmesan or, using them for an egg wash for a pie, or I mean, there's eggs in
Yeah,
almost everything.
there is. Yeah, and it works really well. Like lately I've been having to make some. One of our dogs has a kidney failure, and so I have to make like some chicken to hide his pills in. So like I had just started doing this weird thing recently where I'm trying not to have additives to it. So I just scramble eggs and I put it over the chicken breast and cook it, and it actually works. I don't know what
Mhm.
it tastes like, but he eats it. I don't know if it
Yeah,
keeps it
dogs
moist
love
or not,
eggs,
but
and eggs are so good
yeah,
for dogs too because like the lutein for their
mhm,
eyes, and
yeah,
also just for their skin and their coats and everything, the fats in the egg. I mean, eggs are they're a complete protein.
hmm
So they're a great protein substitute for, like you said, you're vegetarian. So,
hmm
subbing in eggs for meat, and they're so versatile, so you can do
yeah,
so much with them that
yep,
I almost feel they're more versatile than regular proteins.
yeah, yeah,
A lot of times, even if I'm making soup or ramen or whatever, I'll just make some like soft, cooked eggs, slice them in half, stick them on top. Just a
yep,
kind of a
yep.
nice way to get a little extra protein flavor, use up some of
hmm
our eggs. And they cook so
Right.
fast.
They
So it
do.
almost can be an afterthought, oh, I should make
Mhm.
some eggs and stick them on top.
I know my middle son always does that. He'll take eggs and he's making himself ramen. He'll just add eggs to it, like
So
it
good.
works quite well. So, what do you
Mm-hmm.
think about people eating raw eggs? Is this a really bad idea or do you think it's okay?
So I personally love mayonnaise, tiramisu. Those are probably the two big ones. Eggnog. Um,
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot more dangerous things you could be eating.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
risk of salmonella is pretty slim, especially if you're using your own eggs or if
Okay.
you're using fresh eggs. So the longer an egg sits, the more chance bacteria can get in and bacteria can multiply. So if you're going to be making something that uses raw eggs, definitely
Mhm.
you should, find the freshest eggs possible to use for that,
Mhm.
just to minimize the risk. Something like eggnog, it should have alcohol in it. So that, helps to kill
Yeah.
any bacteria. But yeah, in the whole scheme of
Benefit.
things, I love runny egg yolks. And in fact, one of the first reviews on my cookbook on Amazon was someone gave it 1 star and said that I
Ah.
advocate eating raw eggs, which is,
Oh, geez.
dangerous and all this other stuff. And I was like, really? I don't think it's a big risk. Obviously, if you're immune compromised, if you're super old, if,
Mhm.
you're pregnant, whatever, you should stay away from it. But to me, eating a hard boiled egg, unless it's like super warm, and has just been cooked, is like eating a well done steak. Like that is
Mm.
not how that food is supposed to be consumed. Like a jammy,
Mhm.
slightly runny, like kind of set yolk is just perfect.
Right.
Perfect.
You always have to have those trolls that give you those ridiculous, nonsensical reviews, right? And then they give you a low rating for a reason that doesn't even, it's not real.
Yeah. And like, whatever. I mean, you're that offended. by the book because it had some. I mean, I don't like I said. It's almost. I actually I was traveling once and um, for one of the feed companies, and the guy from the feed company that I was traveling with, we went out to dinner and we went and had. We ordered steak, so I ordered mine medium rare as I always do. He ordered
Mhm.
his well done, and like the waiter visibly cringed. I mean, I know he did not want to go back there and tell the chef that the guy ordered his steak well done because I'm sure when you're a chef, that just like hurts your heart because
Right. Like they feel like they're wrecking it.
like nothing like wrecking a good piece of meat.
Right. Oh yeah. So that brings up a question for me. When you have your own eggs that you're doing, do you actually have to wash them before you crack them?
I mean, before you crack them, you should. You never know what's on the outside of an egg. But
Yeah.
I collect them. I keep the nests really clean, and change out the bedding and stuff, whatever. But stuff happens, especially during mud season.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's walking around with muddy feet, whatever. But I collect the eggs, I bring them in, and I put them right in the refrigerator. We have, which was brilliant, but I don't know why it took me almost 15 years to figure out. But I bought one of those little fridges like you have in college dorms,
Oh yeah.
and I put it in our mud room. So now when I come in with eggs, they just go right in there because I never really
Nice.
loved, bringing eggs that hadn't been washed and putting them in the fridge with our food and all that, even though, if they look clean, whatever. But yeah, so we have this little egg fridge. I just drop them right in there in the mud room as soon as I take off my coat. And then, before I use them, rinse them off and use them, which is good practice. And then if they're not washed, they don't have to be refrigerated. So I will leave a bowl of eggs on the counter, especially for
Oh.
baking. A lot of times you need room temperature eggs, and I always forget to take them out. So this way, if you have them on the counter,
Yeah.
and they'll last a good number of weeks on the counter as long as you
Wow. See,
haven't washed them.
I
Yeah.
didn't even know that was a thing. Like I thought immediately, oh, then there must be bad. Right.
Mm-mm. In fact, my I was just talking to my mom about this because my grandparents used to deliver to restaurants, and she used to go with him when she was a little girl, and he had the flats, like the big flats of
Yeah.
eggs, and he would
Yeah.
bring a whole stack of them and just put them inside the kitchen door at the restaurants, and they would just use
Wow.
them from there. They would put them in the fridge; they'd just use them because they were going through them so
Wow.
quickly as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I read
Hmm.
somewhere online once that, the eggs have an expiration date on them, but that's really not true.
I think expiration dates on most things are just to make you
Mhm.
throw it away and buy more, honestly.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I mean, my husband, if a yogurt is like one day expired, like
Yeah.
he'll throw it away and I'll take it out of the trash and give it to the chickens. I'm
Right.
more of a like look for mold and smell it kind of
Yeah.
girl. But yeah, so the expiration date on egg cartons is pretty arbitrary. So what you really want to do is there's a 3-digit code on the end of the carton, like 001
Oh.
to 365, and that's the Julian date. So like 001 is
Oh.
January 1st, 365 is December 31st. So
Okay.
looking at that date, you want to pick like the highest number. So like today's April 1st, right? So that would be like 30, 60, 90, like 91, something like that. So like if you
Okay.
saw a carton that said like 091, which you wouldn't because whatever, that's the date that the eggs were put in the carton. So like
Okay.
you would want to pick like a number in like the high 80s if you were buying eggs today, as opposed to like a carton that says 002, right? So
Okay.
now when the eggs were put in the carton, and they're
Mm.
going to be good. I think they have like 30 days, I believe, the farmer to put them, get the eggs into the carton. They got on the store
Okay.
shelf. And then after that, you've probably got like 6 weeks. Um, but I mean, by then your eggs could be like 2 months old, 3 months old. Like they're not super fresh at the grocery store. Sometimes just for fun, I just go and look, and it's amazing how old some of the cartons on the shelves are.
Right. Like I've heard of people just throwing away eggs that like past one day past the expiration date. And I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, don't do that. That's not actually true. But they do. They're throwing away good food.
And it's not, eggs aren't cheap anymore. So if you take a
No.
glass of water and you take an egg and drop it into the water, if it sits on
Hmm.
the bottom, it's super fresh. And then as it ages, air starts
Oh.
getting into the egg. And
Okay.
so the egg will start to like rise up, and then eventually the egg will float when it's
Mm.
like months old. So if the egg floats, you probably should throw it out because enough
Okay.
air has gotten in, bacteria has probably gotten in. But as long as the egg is sitting on the bottom, or even if it's standing upright but still, touching the bottom of the glass,
Yeah.
it's fine. It's just that it's older. So
That's a great
that's
test
an
for people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's an
because
easy way
that's
to tell
easy to
how old
do.
the eggs are. Exactly. And then if you're worried or you're concerned about how old an egg is, I always crack them into a little bowl. Like you don't want to
Oh,
crack an egg right into your cake batter
yeah,
or
yeah,
into your pan. Crack it into a little bowl. If the egg is bad, you're going to know right away. It's going to
yeah.
look bad. It's going to smell bad, whatever. So just crack it in a little bowl, check it out, and then toss it in your batter.
Now I've heard this too. Is this a rumor? I heard that you can actually freeze eggs. Is that true?
You can, not like in the shell because they'll crack. Sometimes in the winter we get
Yeah,
cracked eggs. But yeah, so
sure.
in the fall when the chickens are still laying, because, they take their winter break and I need eggs for holiday baking.
Oh,
So in the
mm-hmm.
fall, I'll whisk up a bunch of eggs and then just pour them into like those silicone ice cube trays
Oh, yeah.
and freeze them and then, pop them out. And then if you do 3 tablespoons, that's like equivalent to an egg. So then you can
Okay.
just defrost what you need and use them. A little bit of salt I add to it because otherwise they get weird in texture. But you also could freeze them
Okay.
and scramble them. You could make omelets. You could make, whatever.
That is a great thing to
Yeah.
know, especially for these people that are they can't get over the expiration date thing. Freeze them then. Don't throw them
Yeah.
away. Freeze them because like and then that's like a preset like you said you described. Then it's already in a specified amount, so you'll know.
Yeah. Yeah, once
Right.
they're frozen, I usually pop them out and put them like a freezer bag or whatever. And then if you need 3 eggs, you just grab 3 cubes. And that way, I mean, those will last for
Ah.
probably 6 months, probably more. So you're right. You just like other things, if your meat's about to whatever, freeze it. Like you got a couple more months leeway that way.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that idea. And then, yeah, putting them in a Ziploc, then you just quickly grab it. That's a great
Hmm.
idea. Fantastic. So tell me do you have any favorite recipes that you just absolutely love using eggs?
I do. And actually, it landed on the cover of my cookbook. But Eggs
Oh,
Benedict
yeah.
is like my favorite. And again, talk about runny egg yolks. But I think a lot of people get intimidated, and it's actually really easy. It's just about the timing. Like you need your like, toast or English muffin to be ready at the same time, your egg poaches, and then
Yeah.
your sauce, but once you get that timing down, hollandaise sauce is super easy to make. I mean, it's not difficult. And I have tried a few store-bought brands.
Mhm.
Um, they're not good. So you really do need to make your own. But once
Mhm.
you master that, I mean, I would put hollandaise sauce on everything. It's so
Mm,
good. I mean, it's just basically egg and butter and lemon. I mean,
sure.
how good is that?
Right. Oh, yeah. Especially adding the lemon in there. That's a good thing. Always seems good to
Mm-hmm.
be adding lemon to things, even if it's just a little bit, right?
Yes. So the easy thing to do is if you're frying eggs, just
Mhm.
slice or wedge some lemon and like set them in like your butter or your oil as you're frying the eggs, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
lemon's kind of like caramelized, and then you get like that lemon flavor in your egg, and then you can like baste your eggs with the lemon butter liquid or whatever. So good.
Yeah.
Like if I ever have like a half lemon left over or whatever, I always do that.
Have you ever used lime?
I have not, but same. You could probably use an
Yeah.
orange. I mean, any citrus.
Right.
It like brightens it right up. It's really
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. Sounds fun too to see if they taste different, to try the
Hmm.
different citrus fruits. Absolutely. So, what do you have cooking that you're doing next? You working on new stuff at all?
Yeah. So actually, and I'm like a super impatient type A kind of person. So I have been bugging my agent about another cookbook. So
Mm,
my cookbook came out February of 2022, so just over 2 years ago. So I have been bugging
okay.
him about another cookbook. And
Yeah.
just last week we had a call and he's putting together a proposal or started to think about like how to kind of
Mm.
structure a proposal. So I'm very excited about that because as soon as that's done, he'll start pitching it out to some publishers, which is
Oh,
so
nice.
fun. Because I've already
Oh,
been
yeah.
I mean, I've been testing recipes. Like if you could see the floor of my office right now, it's recipes and photos and yeah. So I've been working basically on the next cookbook since the last one because,
I'm
why sit
sure.
around? Might as well get started
Oh,
on it.
yeah.
So when, I finally got on the phone with him and he said, well, like, where are you with, the process? And I was like, I have 135 recipes, all tested, typed out photo. I mean, I don't use my own photos. Like I'm not a food photographer. So we had a professional
Sure.
photographer, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it helped them, um, just to kind of take a sidetrack. So we did a 10-day shoot, for the 100 or
Mm,
so photos. So it was like 10 a day.
okay.
10, 10, 10, yeah, like 10 a day. So each morning when I got there to the studio, I had taken photos of each recipe, mostly for me to remember like what was what. but sometimes you
Mm,
name something and they're like, wait, well, but it was
right.
helpful for them because they had my photos. So they put them on the fridge with magnets.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we knew what we were doing for the day, but also they could get an idea of like my vision of
Mm.
what it should look like. None of them came out looking anything like my photos did, but I think it was helpful to them just to get an idea of like what I had in my head.
Right.
But then them being professional food stylists and photographers, they took pictures that were 1,000 times better. But yeah, it was really helpful. And it's helpful when you're organizing the book too, if you have like 4x6s of each recipe, because then you can kind of
Mm,
lay them out like in chapters and say, okay, that looks good.
right.
Maybe this one should come before that one. So that's kind of the stage I'm in now, like on my own without a cookbook deal. But why not? It keeps me busy. So, and then we're also working on season 3 of my TV show,
Oh, yeah.
which, yeah, so hopefully we'll start shooting that this summer, I hope, and then it'll start airing probably next year around this time, hopefully, as
So
long as all goes well.
do you plan them all ahead of time, like what you're going to do each one before you start the season?
Yeah, and it's kind of hard because the first season we had a crew from Arkansas, which meant we had to just hope the weather held out because if they flew up here, to shoot
Yeah.
3 episodes or whatever, and it ended up raining the whole time. But luckily, we have enough
Right.
indoor kitchen stuff, so we try to plan around the weather. But that was kind of challenging. In season 2, I used a main crew, which was
Mm.
so much easier because, like I could say, it just started snowing. Like, get the drone up there. Let's get some photos. Like we did shorter. They could come
Right.
out for the afternoon or whatever. So we
Mhm.
we spaced it out more so, and then for this season, I think it's going to be either a Boston or New York crew, which is going to be
Okay.
easier than Arkansas, not as easy as Maine. Um, and I do like to get all the seasons too. So of course it's
Oh,
cheaper just to like, bang out the whole season in like 2 weeks. But I really want
yeah.
foliage and I want snow and I want spring flowers. So we have to like break it into smaller, but I know going into it, like what each episode will be, the theme of it, because I like everything to make sense. Like I said, if I'm going to the strawberry farm, I'm going to come home and make something with strawberries, then make something for the chickens, or talk about why strawberries are good for chickens, or talk about
Yeah.
something that has to do with the season. Like in my head, and this last producer, I think I was making him crazy because I was like, it has to fit in the story, like it has to make sense to me.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't make sense to me. It has to flow, like it just, and
Right. Hmm.
I don't think he was a guy. He wasn't really, he was like, it would be cool. We could do this. I'm like, but it doesn't fit into my narrative. Like
Right. You
I
want it to
need to
be
have
authentic.
they're like
Right.
little mini movies, kind of so
Mhm.
I need it all to make sense, but it is a blast. I mean, I absolutely love doing it. The TV show is the most fun thing. I would do it year round if I could.
Oh,
It's just,
that's awesome.
yeah, it's so much fun.
And so are you basically the one on the show or do you ever have other people coming on too?
So it's my husband, like we have to like bribe him heavily to be on the show. So we'll be like sitting by the fire pit, and it'll be like a shot from behind us. Or we were sitting on the porch eating ice cream once, and he was like blurred in the background. So, or he'll be on the tractor, like 2 miles away. So he's a very reluctant participant. My mom, flat out, she's like, "Don't even mention that you have a mother." Like, I don't understand why
Oh,
my family is so against being on television.
that is very strange, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it's
right.
most people are like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, I want to do that," right?
Well, my friend, so I did an ice fishing episode this last
Oh,
season. And so
yeah,
my friend is a realtor up here actually, but she taught me how to ice fish. So I
sure.
said to her, do you want to, we'll rent an Airbnb on a lake. Do you want to come and we'll do an ice fishing episode? She had
Yeah.
a blast. She would be in every episode if I asked her for next season. So we're trying to come up with something that we can have her come back again. Cause I mean, we had hair and makeup done. Like it was just a blast. We had
Oh,
such fun,
fun.
like those 3 days. Yeah. But then every episode I do go, like I went to a cow farm and I learned how to milk a cow. So there's like other
Mm.
farmers
Oh,
in
sure.
it, you know. But
Right.
yeah,
Well, that's cool.
my family is just awful.
That's
They
pretty
don't want to
funny.
be part of it. Yeah.
Unusual. You'd think that they'd be like, "Yeah, let me do that." Like some people are really into that kind of thing.
And my mom, she's like, I don't know where you came from, but I do not want to be in your television show, which is funny. And
Oh,
funny, we used to have a German Shepherd, and
oh yeah.
she also did not want to be on television.
Really?
Like, see the cameras and hide. And then our corgi was like, every shot is about me, right? Like we would have to push his
Right.
face away from the camera because, they'd be down on the ground trying to get the chickens. The
Right.
photographer would literally be laying on his stomach with his camera and the corgi would just walk right up to it with his nose, so I feel like people either love it or hate it.
Isn't that funny how dogs are so different too? Like we have one dog that if you hold up your phone, he like gets shy and he like tries to turn away.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one will like one of the other ones will like pose. I mean, they're like literally will pose. It's so
I
funny.
think they know what's up. My father-in-law had a Sheltie, and we used to
Oh.
laugh that the Sheltie thought that the camera was going to steal his soul, like the American Indians feel like, because
Yeah.
that Sheltie, he saw your camera and he was out of there. Like he would not, like, don't take my picture.
Oh, that's so
So
funny. We used
funny.
to have a Sheltie too, but he wasn't like that. But our other dog that's kind of like I think he's a feist terrier, but he's like that. He's like if you hold up your phone or picture, he's just like, oh my gosh, and he like starts to turn away, like like we're about to attack him or something.
Yeah.
They're so
They
funny.
they
So,
they know.
how did you deal with having a dog, or you still have a dog, right? With the
Mhm.
chickens, does he try to go after the chickens?
No, we've had two German shepherds and a corgi, and they have all been wonderful, and two have been rescues.
Oh,
So we didn't
sure.
have them. And well, so our first German Shepherd was like 9 when we got our first chickens. So
Oh, wow.
we knew she had never seen chickens, but she was wonderful. I mean, she was maternal. She was like the kind of dog where you'd give her like a stuffed animal toy or something at Christmas, and she would
Yeah.
like lay her head on it, and she would like, such the maternal instinct. So she was great. I mean,
Right.
she would lay down and the chickens would walk on her, and she didn't care. So then we rescued this other German Shepherd who, if you gave her a toy, she would immediately rip its head off and like,
Oh, yeah.
pull the squeaker out and whatever.
Yeah.
We were like, great, she's going to kill the chickens. And she
Yeah.
also was wonderful. We had to do a lot of like
Wow.
on leash training and behind the fence, and we had to teach her leave it, drop it, those
Yeah.
kind of things. And she was great too. And then the corgi we rescued as well, and all he wanted to do was just herd everybody. Like, he's a herding breed, so he wanted to like herd the
Yeah.
ducks, herd the chickens, like, and never bothered them, and then finally gave up when they didn't pay attention to him. So I mean, 3 out of 3 we've been super lucky, because yeah, dogs will attack chickens. I mean, that's just, they're fun little squeaky toys that run around. So
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, we've had experience with that too. Like our one dog, we've had rabbits and guinea pigs, and some of the dogs have like sit on the couch with them. Like there's no obviously not all dogs are going to be like that, but it's amazing to me to see that when obviously that would be prey to them if they
yeah.
are in the wild.
But I mean, yeah, exactly. And and our dogs, they will go after squirrels, chipmunks, wild turkeys,
Right.
bunny rabbits. So it's not like they don't have this. But I think, especially German Shepherds, are so smart. Like once they realize that they're part
Mhm.
of your family,
Yeah.
I think they get it. And like we would give our German Shepherd an egg. Like when I would collect eggs, I would give her an egg in her mouth to like carry back to the house. And so I think they just get it. Like they're like, oh, these
Mhm.
are, but then if a wild turkey runs into the
Oh,
yard, they're like
yeah.
after it in a second, which is
That's
crazy how they know.
That's so true because when I think about it, yeah, the same dogs, if they saw a squirrel running, they'd like bark and chase it and be like, oh, like get all growly and stuff. So yeah, that's true. Maybe they just get it. Like, okay,
But they
this,
didn't see the guinea pig as prey. That's funny.
yes. Oh my gosh. And we still have two dogs that can sit on the same couch with the guinea pigs, which is totally crazy to me.
And I worried too, because our chickens being so used to dogs, I wondered like
Yeah.
if another dog came into the yard, if they would just be like,
Right.
"Oh, hey." But on the few
Yeah.
occasions that we have had, a run-in with a neighbor's dog, or my father-in-law's Sheltie, they
Yeah.
immediately know that that's danger. Like, so they know it's
Mm,
not all dogs. It's like their dogs are
mm,
okay, but if they see another dog, they
they're
like
scared.
hightail it out of there. Yeah, so I think they're smarter all around. I think predator and prey are all smarter than we give them credit for.
Yeah, yeah, and that, maybe the dogs too. Maybe they watch how we interact with the other animals and like, oh, okay, they think that's important, or like somehow they know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean,
Well, also yelling, get the squirrel when we see a squirrel probably
that doesn't right.
helps them realize that they're supposed to get the squirrel.
So I forgot to ask this question earlier. So if you have all these things ready for a cookbook, I mean, basically it would be pretty fast for you if you have all the prep work done to
You would
actually get one
think.
out there, you know?
So, well, I would, after we, sign the deal and whatever, I would turn everything in.
Mhm.
And at that point, they would probably hire a recipe tester. And they don't
Okay.
test every recipe, but they'll
Mhm.
test some. And good recipe testers can just look at a recipe
Oh, sure.
for the most part and tell if it's going to work, if whatever. So then that,
Yeah.
and then they would give me edits either on, like, well, boil for how long, or, what should it look like, or what should it smell like, or here's your head note
Mhm.
edited, whatever. So then while that's going on, then the photo shoot, it would have to have all the photos taken and then formatted, because there's, colors,
Mhm.
font, there's
Yep.
covers, they'll submit like 8 or 10 different covers and say, what do you like? You can't do the cover until after the photo shoot's done. Then after the whole thing is approved and done, they're all printed overseas. So now you've got to get in the print queue, and then it's got to get back on a
Yeah.
boat and hope that the
Right.
boat doesn't hit a bridge, or a whole
Oh.
container ship sunk. I remember like the
Oh.
fall after my book came out, a container ship sunk. I think it was in a storm or something. And there were like
Wow.
three big cookbooks on that ship.
Oh, oh,
And that
brutal.
was like their whole inventory. Like it went
Oh
down. So they
my
had to get them all reprinted,
gosh.
and all the release dates had to be pushed like 3 or 4 months. So, I mean, if all goes well, you're still talking probably 6 to 8 months,
Yeah.
even after like all my part is done, just for it to go through the process and then finally, get to Amazon and Barnes and Noble and everything for sale. It's
Yeah,
it's
that's
usually a
just
2 year process, like start to
mm,
finish. But like you said, where I've done, and who knows, maybe they'll hate the direction I'm going and say,
mhm, mhm.
we want to do quick and easy. And then I'll be like, okay, well, that, 80
That's
recipes aren't going to work now. So whatever,
right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's kind of with my chicken books. Like my husband would always say, like, why don't you just write the book while you're waiting for your next deal? And I said, but
Mm,
if they don't like the direction I'm going, it's going to be wasted. So like my chicken books, I would never even start writing until the deal was
yeah.
signed,
Yeah,
because what if this whole idea they hated,
right.
and now I've wasted my time. With recipes, it's a little different because I know it's going to be eggs.
Right.
Um, and basically it keeps me busy. It's something to
Right.
do, and we eat eggs anyway, so I might as well just keep trying different recipes, and
Right.
so
And with the recipes too, you could save some of them for another book. Like it
of
wouldn't be
course.
the end, but that's different than the chicken book. Yeah. I mean, I totally get that. You could be like, okay, well, I'll save these for a future project,
Yeah,
but
of
the
course.
chicken
Yeah.
book is
And
different. Yeah.
I mean, my mom, well, she'll appreciate this, she keeps telling me that I should write like a Scandinavian cookbook.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, Mom, but I don't really, I mean, I kind of do. I have some recipes. I don't think I have a whole cookbook full of Scandinavian recipes, so that would take some
Right.
work.
Yeah.
And I do
Hmm.
have a few Scandinavian cookbooks, but like our family favorites. And then I'm thinking, well, should I not include them? I had
Yeah.
like one or two in my, this book, but I have like 5 or 6 for this next book. I'm thinking, well, maybe I should hold those back, because if I ever want to do that, then I'll have those. So yeah, there's a lot.
Right.
So that's why I just keep. You have about 100 recipes in a book, give or take, but I
Yeah.
just keep going, because like the more the merrier, like you said, or maybe they'll say we just want to do savory this time. We don't want any
Right.
dessert. Well,
Right.
there's 44 recipes that will be for another cookbook.
Right. You're already a leg up for another topic, in other words,
Yeah,
another focus
yeah.
for a book. So yeah, it's never anything wasted. It's just when is it going to get used, perhaps?
And
Yeah.
worst comes to worst, I can throw them all up on my blog. You know,
Right. Right. Which we should talk about that. What else do you have on your blog? You have recipes, obviously, and info about your show.
I don't have a ton of recipes. So I have a lot of articles about
Mm.
raising chickens,
Oh,
ducks, and
sure.
geese,
Yeah. Yeah.
a little bit of gardening, some herbs. I do have some recipes because even way before the whole cookbook thing happened, I always like secretly wanted to be like a food photographer and, food blogger.
Yeah.
But the
Uh-huh.
chicken thing was less competitive. I knew more about it. It was
Oh,
easier to
yeah.
rank. So that's kind of the focus of the blog. And then kind of a light bulb came on because, now I'm thinking, oh, I need to have more recipes on my blog. I need to do more recipe reels. I need to put them on social media. And my mom
Right.
said, but why would I buy your cookbook if all your recipes are on your blog? And a light
Right.
bulb went off. And I said, you know what? That's a very good point. And
Yes.
if someone wants my recipes, they have to buy the cookbook. So I am not going to turn into a food blogger
Right.
because it is very competitive, and it would just stress
Hmm.
me because I wouldn't rank or anything. And I think that's a very good point that she made that sets
It
me
is.
apart maybe from other cookbook authors that if you want my recipes, you got to buy my cookbook.
That is very
So,
true. It's like an exclusive. It's like if you want the exclusive,
yeah,
if you want this part, you have to buy the cookbook and it's going to help you
yeah.
sell cookbooks for sure. Yeah, there's a great idea.
And I do have enough recipes on my blog, most of my family favorites, things I've made over and over again, that I think people
Okay.
can get a good idea of, what I'm about. So it's not like I don't have any recipes and just out of left
Yeah.
field, I'm like, now buy my cookbook, but yeah,
Right.
I think food bloggers who, put out a recipe a week or three recipes a week, or and they've got 800, 1,000, 2,000 recipes on their blog.
Right.
Yeah, I think that it makes it harder to sell a cookbook because,
Mm,
because my mom says, she says, I can go to the library and I can just Google any recipe I want and print it
right.
out. And I'm like, you're right about that.
And she is
So
right about that. But yeah, it's a
yeah,
good idea to have some on there, kind of like a hook to be like, okay,
teaser.
you would
Yeah.
try what? Yeah. Or just if you want to try one of my recipes, and if you like this, then you might like my cookbook, you know?
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yep.
very, very amazing.
Moms,
So
moms know best.
I know, right? She has a different perspective. So do your
Hmm.
do your other family members still keep chickens, or is it just kind of more fallen upon you and your family?
Yeah. So my grandmother, I mean, she obviously is gone now, but she had them pretty much her whole life. Like even after, they got out of the business and retired, she still had like the small flock and whatever. And then
Sure.
we had chickens as a kid. My mom really is not a fan of the chicken.
Oh,
Just growing up, on the chicken farm with the chores and stuff. So
yeah.
we did have chickens growing up, but then kind of once my brother and I, left for college, she let those. And I keep telling her she really should because she always keeps, complaining about eggs and how expensive they
Mm,
are, and kind of the same things you said, like, yeah, I don't know
right.
which ones to buy and which are the best, whatever. My brother lives out in California and he tried chickens for a while, but they have coyotes
Oh,
that were like hopping over their 6 foot fence,
yikes.
and they
Oh,
had a beagle. So he's like, well, the beagle is not really going to be great protection. I don't really want to get like a,
right.
Great Pyrenees. And he travels
Right.
a lot and it was stressing his wife out. So he gave up on the chicken thing. So it's pretty much just
Okay.
me now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you said you have the geese and the ducks. Do you use their eggs at all?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. So they're just bigger. I mean, they look
Hmm.
the same inside. They're just much larger. One goose egg is equivalent to three chicken eggs,
Oh,
which is
wow.
kind of cool. Yeah. So if you had a recipe that called for three eggs, you could just use the goose egg. But
Wow.
you can scramble them, or I made a frittata yesterday with the duck eggs.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
a lot of times duck eggs are like 30% bigger than chicken eggs. So a
Oh,
lot of times I just use them one for one, especially if I'm not baking.
yeah.
The frittata
Hmm.
recipe called for five eggs. I just put in five duck eggs.
Big deal. Right. Yeah. Hmm.
And they're a little richer. They're a little higher in fat. They
Hmm.
rise better. So things rise
Okay.
better, when you're baking with them. But yeah, they taste like eggs.
It's interesting because, like, I feel like when I go to most grocery stores, they don't have duck eggs or geese eggs. It's just chicken eggs only.
Some like Asian markets
Hmm.
will have the duck eggs, or if you go like to a farmer's market or a specialty market. But yeah, I'm
Hmm.
surprised quail eggs as well. Um,
Yeah.
I really want to raise quail, but I've had friends, send me some quail eggs, and they're just these little tiny things, and they're really fun
Oh.
to like just make like little bite-sized hard-boiled eggs or
Oh, yeah.
whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm surprised
Interesting.
that more, because I think in other countries you would go to the store and see different types of eggs, and for some reason in this country it's just chicken, and for a long time just white chicken. Like now you
Right.
sometimes see blue. I was out
Hmm.
in California and they did have the regular grocery store did have blue
Hmm.
eggs.
Okay.
Happy Egg Company has started selling
Oh,
blue
okay.
eggs at the store, which is fun.
We have Happy Egg Company up here too, but I haven't seen them have any blue ones.
I
By
think
me
it,
anyway.
yeah, us too. They just have the brown. I think they have the brown and the white. Like their cartons are mixed sometimes, right? Like it's brown and white, or sometimes it's just brown.
I've never seen any mixed either, which is interesting. It's
Hmm.
different by region. Mine
Yeah.
always are all the same color in the carton.
I think
Yeah.
it's by region because I did see them in California, but I've never seen them here in Maine. So they must distribute, to different areas depending on what they think will be popular.
Right, right. So interesting. So it's different. It's interesting to me how it's different in different regions, but I guess it just is what people have in that area. Do you like to raise one particular chicken, goose, or duck better than the others, or are they kind of all just kind of fun for you to do? Or do you have a favorite? I guess is what I'm asking.
So, so we started out with the chick, like I had, I had chickens as a kid, whatever, then took a break. I went
Mhm.
to college, had a job, whatever. And then we got chickens in 2009. My husband was in the Navy and we had like kind of just moved and I didn't have a
Uh,
job and whatever. So we got chickens, backyard chickens were kind of getting big then. So we went to the feed store. And as we were picking out the chicks, which I felt super comfortable with, because even though I didn't
yeah,
really know how to raise, like I had grown up with them. So I was like, I could figure out
yeah.
the nitty gritty, right? They
Mhm.
also had ducklings. And my husband was like, oh, well, we'll take some of those too. And I was like, okay, I've never had ducks. I know nothing about raising ducks. So it
Right.
was like a crash course. So we've had the ducks and chickens together for like almost 15 years. We got the geese,
Okay.
I think 4 years ago. I finally talked him into geese. If I had known now, if I had known then what I know now, I
Mhm.
would have actually skipped the chickens and just gone with the
Oh,
ducks. And we love the
wow.
geese too. The ducks are happier, easier, more cold hardy. They don't get
Okay.
sick as much. They lay bigger eggs that are better for baking.
Oh, wow.
Um, just so many reasons. I find the ducks so much easier and they're so much more fun. Like someone
Yeah.
said recently that ducks always act like they're late for a meeting, because everyone will be out in the yard and the chickens are just kind of like milling around looking for worms. And all of a sudden
Yeah.
the ducks just go like tearing across the yard.
That's cute.
Um, and I said, or fleeing a crime scene. Like
Yeah,
they are
yeah.
always doing, they're so funny. And so, yeah, so much as my husband says, don't tell anybody because chickens are like our bread and butter, but
Yeah.
it, the ducks are just so much easier. And I'm surprised they're not more popular. Um, and then the geese, the only problem with them is they only lay for like a month or two each spring.
Oh,
So they don't
okay.
lay as much. So if you only had geese, you really wouldn't get enough eggs. But the geese
Yeah.
are like 100% maintenance free. They're so smart. They're so funny. They
Oh.
literally eat grass. Like you can almost raise geese. If we didn't have snow on the ground, they could just eat grass year round and you would not even have to feed them,
Wow. That's
which makes
amazing.
them for homesteaders. I'm surprised that more homesteaders, and plus, I mean, not that we eat our animals, but like
Hmm.
eating a goose, that's a lot more meals than a chicken,
Yeah,
right?
true. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
geese mature so fast. So the geese are just so
Oh,
low
yeah.
maintenance. I mean, I let them out in the morning. I lock them up at night. They eat grass all day. I do give them hay and wheat in the winter here because we have snow on the ground, but
Yeah,
they
yeah.
eat hay like horses. Excuse me. The geese were a surprise because they're almost more like cows. I thought the geese and ducks would be very
Oh,
similar. I
yeah.
was like, yeah, let's get geese because we have ducks and they're waterfowl and they swim in a kiddie pool, whatever.
Yeah.
Geese are so much more like cows. They
Mm,
just like graze all day
wow.
and eat grass. And even if you give them food, they would rather eat grass.
Isn't that
Like,
amazing? I didn't even know they
mhm,
ate grass. I didn't
mhm,
even know that was a thing.
mhm. So inexpensive to raise them. And even when I give them the wheat, John Metzer, who has Metzer Farms, which is like the largest goose and duck hatchery in the country.
Sure.
I've met him a few times. I've been out there, so I've been super
Mhm.
fortunate to like not have to research stuff. I can just like call him and be
Oh,
like, "Hey, John."
nice.
So the first winter
Perfect.
we had them, sorry, the pollen is like starting to get.
Oh,
So the
yes.
first winter we had them, I would give them a bowl of wheat and hay, and the next morning they wouldn't have eaten like anything. So I was afraid there was something wrong. And he said that
Oh,
yeast, their metabolism slows naturally in the winter, and
okay.
they are very efficient with their feed. So they
Yeah.
really don't, they almost go into like a hibernation, although they don't like curl up and
Oh,
sleep, but
yeah.
they require so little in the way of energy in the winter.
Huh.
He said that's not surprising. And meanwhile, the chickens and ducks are like
Yeah.
eating their weight and feed all winter trying to stay
Yeah.
warm.
Yeah. Hmm.
And the geese just, yeah, they're amazing and they're so smart and so fun. And also they're less susceptible to predators. Like a hawk is not going to swoop down and
They're
carry a goose
big.
away. They're
Right.
huge. Yeah, I still worry about like coyotes and dogs and stuff, so I keep an eye on them,
Yeah.
but they're also super observant and loud. So like if anything
They're
looked
loud.
out
Yeah.
of normal, we would hear it. Yeah.
Well, and listening to you say all that, it's like that sounds like an idea for a book. Like how to raise ducks and geese because like that's not a commonly known thing. Like when I'm thinking about, I hear about chicken farmers all the time, but I don't hear people having ducks and geese.
And
You know?
no, and since we didn't know, because I wanted them for a long time, because they also do help guard the chickens and ducks when they're out. So I wanted them for a long
Mhm.
time, and I looked for books, and I couldn't really find any. There were some books about ducks that mentioned geese as well,
Mhm. Right.
um, but it was more like for meat production, so it wasn't really
Mm.
much
Oh,
about
sure.
past the first couple of weeks, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now having them, I was like, they shouldn't even be in a book with ducks because they're so different.
Yeah.
And so people have asked me, like, are you going to write a book about geese? But I don't even know if
Yeah.
there's enough to fill a book because
Oh,
literally they just eat grass and then you lock them up at night. I mean, it's
yeah.
like there's like
Right.
nothing to it. There's just, they lay an egg in the morning. And I mean, it's just, I don't even know what I would say about them. And
Right.
there's like 100+ chicken breeds and probably, oh, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 duck breeds. I think there's
Okay.
only like 5 or 6 goose breeds. So there's not even enough
Oh.
for like a chapter on the breed. Like there's just nothing to write about. I have like 6 articles on my blog and I'm like, just read that. That's like all you need to know.
Right. Yeah, maybe that's the way to do it. So on your blog or maybe an episode, the show or
Yeah, we
something.
did we have mentioned, but I did want to, because we did focus on the ducks on one episode, and I did want to focus on the geese for an episode because I've just
Mhm.
learned so much, and they can live to be like 20 or 25 years old.
Oh, wow.
So my husband keeps joking that we're going to have to find like a retirement community that allows geese because they're going to be coming with us.
Right. But that's kind of fun too, though, because they're kind of like, like your pets, right? They're like pets to you.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
had good luck. We've had ducks live to be 12 years old, chickens like 10 or
Mhm.
11 years old. And I mean, if you
Uh-huh.
think about it, that's like as long as you have a dog sometimes.
Yes. Yes. Oh, for
So
sure.
it is hard I mean, it's gotten easier over the years. It's very hard to lose them though, because you do get so
Mhm.
attached to them.
Oh, yeah,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
25 years for the geese I remember in high school, a friend of mine, her parents had some geese, and we lost touch, whatever. I reconnected with her on Facebook, like within the
Mm.
last couple of years. She told me
Uh-huh.
her parents just lost their geese that
Oh,
they had had since we were like in high school. I mean, that's just crazy to
wow. That
me.
is crazy. It's amazing.
Hmm.
That's a long time.
Hmm.
One area we haven't touched on at all is I saw on your website that you're also a master gardener. So you do gardening, or is
Very
that
badly.
referring to the chickens when they say that?
Yeah,
What was that?
no, no, yeah. So I had wanted to so my grandmother was really big in the extension service, like growing up. And she used to take me to some of the meetings, and she just was
Mhm.
really, really involved in that. And
Mhm.
I wanted to take the Master Gardener course in Virginia, but I knew we weren't staying there. So I kind of
Right.
wanted to wait because each course is kind of geared toward like your planting zone and whatever. So as soon as
Sure.
we moved to Maine, I said, all right, we're going to stay here like forever. So I want to take the Master Gardener course, which I
Mhm.
did. I loved it. I mean, it was just so informative and fun. And like there were workshops and we went out and did things and I made some friends. And then there's like a
Mhm.
volunteer part of it. Um, but that said, I'm a terrible gardener. I mean, I'm good at garlic,
Mhm.
beets, carrots, kind of like all the and herbs. I can grow herbs really well.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
the rest of it, I love the buying the seeds and the planning and all
Hmm.
that. And then once everything's planted and there's like weeding to do and maintenance,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
lose interest. And
Yep.
then, yeah, yeah,
I totally get it. So
yeah.
you kind of just do
So,
little bits here and there, but not anything extensive. Yeah. But you've got all the chickens, so and the ducks and the geese. So that keeps you occupied, I would
yeah,
imagine.
it does. And I do plant garlic. I mean, I'm really good at garlic. So I plant garlic every fall. And then I do have like a container on like outside the kitchen door because I do love cooking with fresh herbs. So I
Oh,
plant like
sure.
the basil and the parsley and the tarragon and dill and, things that the grocery store doesn't always have. So I have those, through the summer. That's kind of the extent of it. But yeah, technically I'm a master gardener, which for whatever it's worth, it doesn't mean you actually can grow things.
But it's also knowledge too, like
It
that
is.
probably impacts, your overall.
It did, and I mean they talked about companion planting, which was super. And like I always feel like you always have to be learning too. So it was something
Yeah.
just totally new. Like I learned how to do the root stuff or whatever, and like start whatever. I forget what we were doing, but like from branches, or we
Oh,
learned
yeah.
how to like no, I forget the word. Is it graft? Like,
Maybe graft. Yeah.
yeah, we learned how to do
Yeah.
that. And we just,
Sure.
yeah, there were some field trips and yeah, it was fun. I definitely highly recommend everyone take your state's master gardener course because it just was a lot of fun. Oh, and then we do volunteer things. So like there's this local community garden, and every summer they have like an open house and they do scavenger hunts for the kids. And so they need
Mm,
volunteers, to make sure that everyone's going on the path right and sign people in. And like, so I do that.
yeah.
And like my friend does it. We man the table together. And like, it's a good community thing to do.
Absolutely. So, are you surprised where you are in your career, or did you see yourself reaching this point? I mean, is this what you're doing now? Is it something you're like, well, I didn't expect this, or is it something you kind of always had a vision for or wanted?
It wasn't planned at all. Like I went to college. I got my degree in accounting. I went to work on Wall Street. And
Mm,
then I got really bored with that really fast. And so
mhm.
I quit and opened a bookstore,
Okay.
ironically, on Long Island. And I was doing that, loved it when I met my husband, who was in the Navy. So
Mm,
then he was in Pensacola. My bookstore was on Long Island. So we
mm,
got married. I moved to Pensacola. And then I mean, we bounced, and it was hard to have a
mm.
career, much less a job. And then we ended up in Virginia, and that's where I got the chickens. But
Okay.
I started it like on a whim. I was bored.
Mm,
It was kind of like everyone was doing it, getting chickens and goats and stuff. And
yeah.
I just started a Facebook page kind of because my friends were complaining about all the chicken pictures. So I
Mm.
kind of picked like fresh eggs daily out of a hat and was like, fine, I'll start a business page and just put, chicken pictures on it. And the fact that it's turned into like 7 books and 1 million followers and a TV show is pretty insane.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't plan it, but I do have a degree in business. So I
Hmm.
kind of feel like that was super helpful. And I've always kind of been like, had that sort of a brain. And also, I'm a terrible employee. Um, I'm much better at like being the boss of myself. So,
Yeah.
this is something that works for me. And my husband thought I would get bored with it because I do
Oh.
have a very, very short attention span. So he figured we'd have the chickens for a few years. I'd
Oh.
get bored, move on to something else. But fortunately,
Yeah.
it allowed me to be so creative. And there's been so many different aspects of it that as soon as I do get bored with one thing, I kind of put my focus on something else. And then, it keeps me from getting terribly bored.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So kind of just naturally kind of unraveled and since you have you're an entrepreneur, it just kind of went that path. That's very
Well,
cool.
after I started my blog, which really was just people kept asking me the same questions on Facebook like over and over again. And blogs were kind of
Oh.
new back in 2011,
Mm.
12, they weren't super
Yeah.
popular.
Right.
So I thought, well, I can write a couple articles about the things people keep asking me and then just like put the link. It was going to be an archive, pure and simple. I figured, 20
Sure.
articles. And
Hmm.
then someone said to me, you can get brands to pay you to put ads on your blog, and a
Oh
light bulb
yeah.
went off. And I was like, oh,
Right.
okay, game on.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I charged like $10 a month the first year or something like that. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, yeah.
then, I mean, 700, almost 800 articles later, and I still have more to write about, which I can't believe that there's
It's
always
awesome.
something else to write about. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely been a fun journey. And
Mhm.
yeah, I enjoy it. And I think
That
I'm
is
helping.
fun.
I think that, especially in this world of social media and TikTok and Reels and everyone being an
Yeah.
instant expert. And I mean, I've seen people offering courses on raising chickens whose chickens
Mm.
haven't even started laying eggs yet.
Oh,
Like
geez.
they haven't even had them like a full year and they're offering courses that people are paying for. So like I think
Wow.
having like a voice of reason and
Mhm.
a place where people know that they can trust because I've been doing it for a
Mhm.
long time, I know what
Yep.
I'm doing. I have the books behind me. I think it's comforting to people because I get a lot of
Mhm.
emails saying, I keep hearing this, or people keep saying this, or I'm in this group. I need to ask you because I know what you tell me is going to be the right answer, and that
Right.
makes me feel good that, they know that I'm there after they've exhausted everything else, you know?
Yeah,
So,
they trust you and they know you have the experience. So
mhm,
you have a reputation.
right,
That's very cool. Very cool.
right. And I don't
So
have to kill myself making reels and TikToks. And I like, it's not
right.
my goal to go viral in any way, shape, or form. I don't want to
Right.
jump on the latest trends. I don't want to like none of that. I want to do things that last, that
Hmm.
people can, refer back to. I have some
Hmm.
YouTube videos, not a lot, but like the books,
Hmm.
TV show, the blog, like they're always going to be there, and
Yeah.
they're constant. They're not just like this is the latest on my Instagram or whatever.
Right. I mean, that's so true because you put something on social media, it's kind of like a blink. It's there and then gone. People on to the next thing. But books and in a blog, it has staying power and it's always there. Once
Yeah.
you create it, it's always there.
It is,
Hmm.
and it's easily retrievable. And people will say, "Oh, I
Hmm.
saw something on your Facebook, and now I can't find it." And I'm like, "Well, because Facebook isn't really like searchable. I
Right.
mean, it is, but like,
Not
and
like
to me,
that.
to
No.
spend so much time creating this content, which some of it is truly wonderful, but some of the stuff I see on
Yes.
social media, and like you said, once it's not the latest post, like no
Hmm.
one's seeing it, and to spend that much
Right.
time creating something,
Right.
to me, that would be so frustrating. Like, at least when I do the
Right.
TV show, I know that it's on television. It's going to be on the PBS website. It lives on, and they're going to keep airing it for,
Right.
however many years. And so
Hmm.
taking pride in creating content that lasts, I think, is important.
Right. I mean, and I think it makes me think of a podcast too, because you can scroll through all those ideas and you can get back to it. You can bookmark it. Like, oh,
Mhm.
I want to be able to see this episode again. It's kind of like a blog in that way. But yeah, I mean, if people are going to be doing this stuff on social media, it's almost like they need to be creating it for more than one spot instead of just that one
Mhm.
blink.
Mhm.
It's, yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
like
either
throwaway.
YouTube or yeah, and I love doing podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, more than radio shows, because I feel like radio shows are almost like social media, because I don't think people really go and look at radio shows and go back. But
Right.
podcasts, you've got this archive that is
Yes.
searchable, and
Mm-hmm.
it's important.
Yeah, it's searchable and you can scroll through and find it easily because all the titles are just right there. Because I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, I have people going back to all episodes, and listening to them. So it's not like they can't find it
Like a
or,
one and done, like it's been on
right.
and now it's gone. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So where else can people find you? You mentioned Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, right?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, at Fresh Egg Daily. So Facebook,
Mhm.
Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you call it. I'm not really active there anymore.
Yeah.
Threads, which who the heck even knows what that is? But yeah, I'm there. YouTube, Pinterest. I
Pinterest is
blog
good for
Fresh
you,
Egg Daily.
probably.
Yeah, Pinterest does really well. So
Mhm.
yeah, just Fresh Eggs Daily, and I tell people, if you're looking for something, because Google has lately gotten just awful with the search results. I mean,
I know.
you
Yeah.
get like such random stuff. So like if you're looking for something, like what chickens lay blue eggs, just add Fresh Eggs Daily to the end of your search, and
Mhm.
then like my content will just come right up. So it's a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
little tip.
Yeah, I think it drives me crazy too. I'll put something in and then it will give me all these other things that look like they're paid. And then it will give me further down what I was asking for. I'm like, this is really annoying. I have to scroll down to find the thing that I really
Yeah.
looked for because they stack it. It's
And
irritating.
in videos, even before this latest thing, videos, like I don't want to watch it. My husband will watch a video. Like if he needs to know how to change the wiper
Yeah.
fluid or whatever, he wants to watch a video. I do not want to
Yep.
watch a video. I just want to read
Mhm.
something because I can read it in 4 seconds. But you have to scroll through like
Right.
6 videos and then
Yeah.
3 Reddit threads and now Quora and then yeah, 3 paid. And then on the second page, you finally start finding like reputable results for what you're looking for. So yeah, it's just a mess.
It's frustrating.
Mhm.
Well, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention or you think is important or really anything at all?
I don't think so. I hope people will find this interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think eggs are fascinating. Chickens, not so much. Kind of over the chickens at this point, but I get that people love them and want to raise them. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, it's been really fun chatting, and I think the conversation just kind of flowed, and we covered a
Yeah.
lot.
We did. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it, and I learned stuff too. Stuff that will
Excellent.
be yeah. So thank you so much for coming on. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You have a good day.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.